Try and remember now just what has been done. Enslavement, displacement of every nation, and now to one nation. Everyone owe their grudge, kinda make me wonder where which side I'm on. Don't defend the white and I don't defend.
Hey guys, I thought I would record a tiny short video about Lyme disease and its importance for humanity. So, of course, sickness is, how can that be important for humanity? But I mean the consciousness of humanity. As you know, recently, finally, something positive happened, something that proves we have some good people in politics, in government, and that is that the Congress of America, headed by Congressman Chris Smith, have pushed a bill in Congress which has been passed to force the Pentagon to divulge the information on weaponizing ticks. Now, I did a whole video about this, you can watch it, and it would take a level of ignorance beyond comprehension for someone not to put the pieces together. The fact alone that the highest concentration of the type of Lyme disease I have in the world is centered around Plum Island, which is off the coast of Lyme, Connecticut, where Lyme disease got its name from. Still to this day, that's the highest concentration. And it takes a huge understanding that Plum Island was used for weapons research, and Nazi scientists were placed there, and that there have been extremely large amount of attorneys investigated, couldn't find the patents, etc., but knew from interviewing staff there that they had weaponized ticks. They got loose, probably attached to birds and flew to the mainland, and they started the spread of a bioweapon ultimately. Now, the bacteria, the spirochete, has been around a long time. No one denies that, but it's hybridized. And even the man who did the most research on it, William Bergdorfery, which is where Borrelia burgdorferi gets its name from, he said that he called it the Swiss secret agent. And the reason being is there's a type of rickettsia in Switzerland, and he kept finding that as a spliced aspect of the genome of Lyme disease. So it's as if those Nazi scientists brought their research over and they created a hybridized new type of disease to weaponize. And there's reports of them dropping these ticks in Cuba. They definitely dropped weaponized ticks in Russia during the war. So there's just endless evidence that we've done this as a species, sadly. But the thing I want to say that's important, we have currently a world leader in Donald Trump, and a lot of people think he's some sort of Christian savior, etc., and he's going to help the planet. I've said his first ever cabinet were all Rothschild based and placed, and that leaves me to think that he's just another puppet, because Rothschild made him wealthy. He bailed him out when his businesses went awry in 76 or something like that. It was, I can't remember the year. But anyway, if so that we have a good leader, this is going to be telling. Trump, rightly so, uses strong language, and he often calls people cowards. And he said the recent attack at El Paso, which it was, and I agree with him, was an absolute act of cowardice. But if we're going to call the attack of innocent people cowardice, what are we going to call a government who dare not actually tell the truth that they have accidentally released a bioweapon or purposefully released a bioweapon upon its own people? The only reason they wouldn't do it is obviously the implications for humanity to understand that governments are doing this is firstly, and the second is monetary. The courts would be filled with people making monetary claims for the damage done to them. The evidence is there. Read the book Bitten. It's impossible to deny the evidence. It takes total buffoonery to say that it's not the situation for me at this point. The question is this government headed by a coward? And that's really an important question, because if they sweep it under the rug, which they often do with these things, then you can guarantee we have yet another coward in charge, unfortunately, because it falls on that office at the end of the day. That office is in charge of the Pentagon, etc. And Congress is there to keep things diplomatic and correct. And Congress have already called it and said, I'm sorry, that there's enough information here to say that you have weaponized something and messed up our own population. It would take a truly cowardly government to not follow through and admit the truth. And I think for the sake of human consciousness, Lyme could be a very special thing. Just as 9/11 alerted people to some very alarming aspects of human consciousness, they understood Federal Reserve, central banks, etc. Lyme will help if a government dare tell the truth, will help the world to understand exactly what our leaders have been up to and exactly the sort of nonsense that we as a minority allow for because we do not act. There's so many slacktivists on the planet who are fighting to stop the system by simply living in the system, staying at home and posting things on the internet. This is not activism, doesn't change anything, doesn't build anything new. And sadly, it's because we're locked into that zone of that's where we think it is. And it's like the right to protest. It's a pressure valve to release the pressure that humanity has built up over certain situations with governments. Social media has become another pressure valve where people feel I'm doing my part to help change the planet. But all they're doing is sharing posts. This is not doing your part. Doing your part would take switching off social media, getting still and building something with relevance. I agree social media can spread an important message, but if everybody's just spreading the message and nobody's acting and building, then what use is it? So we need people who get educated, understand the system, can go into the system and try to tackle it. But above all, we need leaders. But I think the age-old problem is that so few people understand the system and how it works, that they don't grasp that we are often looking to the manager of a supermarket to influence the board that owns the supermarket. And that's a level of impossibility. You know yourself, a manager might be able to order stock, rearrange the way the supermarket looks, but the board has the ultimate say over whether that supermarket is going to run in a certain way or not. And that's exactly how we've fallen in with our world leaders now due to the banking system and the corruption in there. And also now the military system, clearly. So it's an important thing. Let's see where it takes humanity. Will it be a point of awakening for consciousness? I think it stands an opportunity, but only if we find a real leader. I just hope we have one. God bless, guys.
Try and remember now just what has been done. Enslavement, displacement of every nation, and now to one nation. Everyone owe their grudge, kinda make me wonder which side I'm on. Don't defend the white and I don't defend the black. I defend truth and rights and all of that. Work on situation where I'm at. Hold my position, never fall off track, not give up, not faith. Though Babylon rage, I strive until the end of my days. Rasta courage, go against society, Rasta courage. Babylon rage, I strive until the end of my days. Rasta courage, go against society, Rasta courage. I not give up no good vibes, and I never give up no truth. Never trade my sanity for living in Babylon. Oh, vanity will never drive this man insane. This man will walk alongside Jah again. We see all the pressure to conform today, and I may sometimes bend, but only as not to break. Cause a life of iniquity for laziness sake is a deal with the devil, Rasta just can't make. No give up, no faith. Though Babylon rage, I strive until the end of my day. Rasta courage, go against society, Rasta courage. Babylon rage, I strive until the end of my day. Rasta courage, go against society, Rasta courage. Looking back flag now upon all of the evidence. 400 years and what them years have really done. We talk of peace, but at the first sign of war, brethren ain't brethren and sistren ain't sistren no more. Without forgiveness, how will any war cease? While the heathen rage, Rasta man sitting at ease. No one will move a muscle for some moral justice. And with no justice, well, there will be no peace, no give up, no faith. Though Babylon rage, I strive until the end of my day. Rasta courage, go against society, Rasta courage.